Hi everyone and welcome to the weekly update with me, Rich Perry, market analyst at Handtech Markets. Each week I'll take you through the key events that I believe will be driving your investments in the coming days. Now, this very strong non-farm payrolls report that we had on Friday is still running a legacy into today. That had some significant moves on the dollar, and that turned around a lot of the Forex markets and also some of the safe haven risk plays that have been performing positively up until then. Certainly the yen has been turned around on its head, also gold price and US Treasury yields have spiked higher as well. So an interesting turn, and that is because of the very strong jobs growth that the US is still performing in, but also we're now seeing earnings growth as well, and we're now getting some Fed speakers, some FOMC members coming out and saying that the potential for an earlier rate hike is still on the table. Now that is certainly going to be driving sentiment for the dollar, and has now turned around this prospect of a correction, certainly near term as well. And there's some key levels that are being tested that I'll talk about in a bit. Certainly there is still that prospect of an earlier than expected rate hike by the Fed, which is certainly driving that dollar strength. Now also we've got over the weekend, which is slightly sort of flipped on the back of flipped on the head of the positive sentiment, some bad news, or certainly some not great news that have come out of the talks between Angela Merkel, Francois Hollande and Russian President Putin on the future of how they're going to deal with eastern Ukraine. And certainly we're now beginning to come out with news that the Americans may be wading into the whole situation by potentially even arming the Ukrainian army, and that would certainly take a new tack on this whole situation, and potentially even escalate the severity of the conflict. So it's not great news that if it does come to pass, and that's one of the reasons why certainly today we're seeing the DAX down. The DAX is also down on the fact that Greece over the weekend, the Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras continues to strengthen his resolve, and he says that they're going to continue to remain on the anti-austerity path, with they're going to be hiring up government officials that have been apparently illegally made, given their jobs ending under the previous government. And it's sort of continuing this anti-austerity theme that is so against the Troika's agreements with the bailout terms. So it's interesting that they're still flying in the face of that negotiations. So how that plays out over the coming weeks will remain to be seen, but certainly as that continues to seem as though the two sides are clashing, that will impact on sentiment in a negative way. So how are all the markets left looking into this week? Well, we're looking at the Forex markets first of all. And certainly the FX markets have been affected by this non-farm payrolls report that we saw on Friday. Big turnaround in sentiment on the euro and also sterling and the yen, the three big ones having a sharp retracement in some of those recent gains that they saw against the dollar. In terms of euro dollar, it came back towards that floor at $1.13, and I think that's a key floor between 112.60 and 113, big figure on the euro dollar chart now. And if it starts to lose that floor, then I think we can start to see further declines in that. But certainly at the moment it's just hanging on by the thread to a potentially bullish, potentially near-term technical rally anyway. Now on cable there is much more of a reversal pattern actually going on. There's a base pattern that was cable completed last week. It's still intact. Finding support above $1.52 is a positive. If it can continue to do that, then the bulls will still, I think, be fairly happy with the developments at the moment. But certainly that 152 level I think is fairly key, and if you start seeing closing levels below that, I think that would sort of start to believe that the bulls are losing control on that one. And the biggest move that we saw of the week last week on Friday was on dollar yen. Now dollar yen had been consolidating sideways for quite some time, actually over the past almost 3 weeks. And dollar yen had a sharp rally on Friday with that dollar strengthening, and that took the rate through some significant resistance levels and above 119 for the first time in almost a month. Now that was failed to find a significant close there, but I think we're still playing around with these levels, and it needs to start trading consistently above 119 to suggest that the dollar really is gaining in momentum to the upside. I think it's still just slightly up in the air, but dollar yen certainly seems to be the one that's turning around the most. Now, okay, so for indices, well, there's a lot of macro data and macro events that are driving indices at the moment. Certainly, you'd argue that oil, for example, the rebound in oil is benefiting FTSE because of its large weighting. You're seeing that obviously the quantitative easing drive that's helped the DAX, but obviously the DAX has come back again on the back of the Greek situation, but also Ukraine in eastern Ukraine, and the gravity of that may be escalating. And also in earnings season in the States has not been great for the S&P 500 yet, and we're still seeing the S&P 500 struggling on the back of that. So lots of drivers of these markets at the moment. The S&P 500 needs to continue to find support above 1980, but it's still just lacking slightly, and it's failing to really push back towards those highs again. In terms of the DAX, well, it seems to have lost a bit of momentum on Monday morning with this bad news over the weekend, and certainly a few momentum indicators are giving some corrective signals. Maybe get a retest of that support at 10,552 today or over the coming days. Now, also we're seeing FTSE 100, which again seems to be losing momentum just at the critical moment, as it looks like it's going to be testing that crucial high, 6,905. Looks like it's now coming back towards maybe a test of the initial supports at 6,732. So a bit of a disappointment on that FTSE, but might find it regains a bit of support if the macro data and the macro events turn around and improve somewhat again. So looking at the gold price, gold, as I said, had a sharp reversal on Friday, and as the dollar strengthened, that sort of reversed a strange situation that we had actually, where the gold price was rallying in correlation with the dollar, but certainly that strong non-farm payrolls report flipped that sentiment around on its head, and what we've seen is the gold price fall through some very important supports actually. 1255 was the basis of support, that's gone. 1238 was another basis of support, that's been broken, and we're now coming back towards 1222. If 1222 breaks down, then I think that would suggest that the medium-term bull market has been broken on gold, but certainly at the moment it's held. It's actually rallied a little bit on Monday morning, so it'll be interesting to see how that performs throughout this week. So into what are we actually looking out for the rest of the week coming up in the economic calendar? Well, we've got Chinese inflation, an interesting bit of data that on Tuesday morning. That comes after the Chinese trade data, which was so weak, and going to be driving further talk of potential further easing by the People's Bank of China, and if that Chinese inflation data comes out weak on Tuesday morning, then that could potentially even escalate that talk of rate easing there in China. Now, also we've got the UK manufacturing production, and then on to Wednesday we've got the US crude oil inventories, which has been an important driver of oil prices in recent weeks, and that continues to remain fairly elevated, but is just beginning to drop off again, so that could provide further support for these oil prices. Then on to Thursday, we've got the crikey, I can't even remember. We've got the Australian unemployment data that comes out early in the morning, and also then we've got the weekly jobless claims into the afternoon. And then on Friday we've got the Eurozone growth data, which obviously will have an impact on the euro, and then we're going to finish off on Friday afternoon with the Michigan sentiment data, which gives a little bit of US to round off the week. So not a great deal going on this week, but certainly the big macro events will continue to drive, I think. Anyway, I wish you good luck in your trading this week, and I will speak to you later. Thank you.